There's a real possibility that football card releases this fall could be limited or non-existent. Can the hobby survive without Prism and National Treasures? We'll tell you the latest next. Hello, sports card investors, and welcome to another Cards on the Table. And what a wild week it has been for the sports card hobby. It started on Monday when the NFL Players Association broke up with Panini, more like kicked Panini to the curb. They said, get out of here. They said, stop producing cards immediately that have the official NFLPA player likenesses on them. What does this all mean? There's a lot of uncertainty still. There's a lot of questions to be answered. But what we do know is there's a very real possibility that football products this fall could be limited. We could see products with less players than normal. We could see products missing key rookies. We could see unlicensed products without team logos. Or we might see no products at all, at least at times this fall. No Prism. No National Treasures, no Flawless. Is this a thing? Are we going to survive? And Teapot and Doug, welcome. We got a lot to talk about today. Doug, I'm going to start with you on this first topic. What's going on here, and how does the hobby persevere, or does the hobby persevere?
Yeah, so, I mean, first of all, this is all very confusing because we're hearing little snips and pieces of what might be going on. It's also extremely frustrating. So what we think we know right now, NFLPA says you no longer have the permission to use our players' likenesses. But Panini still has the NFL license. So they could still hypothetically make a licensed product with team names, team logos, but then the NFLPA says, but you can't use any of our players.
Right.
Even the guys that you have individual contracts with, if you don't have the group contract, you can't do it.
And that's where it gets a little confusing, because Panini does have contracts with 350 players.
Yeah.
But Darren Rovell has said that they can't produce products with more than 5 of those players in the same product.
Sure.
And we don't believe they have contracts, even if they were able to create products with a lot of those players this fall. We don't believe they have a contract with Bryce Young. We don't believe they have a contract with CJ Stroud. And we don't believe they have a contract with Will Levis, your Kentucky boy. Yeah. So even if they create products, you're looking at products that are going to be missing, completely missing,
At least those guys.
Your 3 biggest rookies, or 3 of your 4 or 5 biggest rookies from this fall. At least those guys, and maybe more.
So it's looking pretty bleak. That's not great at all. At this point, the only way we have the kind of football product we want this year is if Fanatics is somehow already ready to print 2023 class football, and they do the same thing with the NFL license that they just did with the NFLPA license, and somehow get that expedited by a few years. It seems, Fanatics, if they don't get their way initially, they're going to find a way to make it happen. They're very much strong-arming this whole situation. I think it sucks for collectors, though. This is a huge bummer. People that are invested in this from a business standpoint, it's probably going to hurt them too. But for collectors, this might be the year. It's been a long time since Kentucky's had a quarterback drafted. This would be my chance to go chase a Kentucky quarterback. I'm not going to get Will Levis cards now in all likelihood. And, there's going to be a lot of people in that same boat. It just sucks.
Yeah, and so there, I do expect we're going to see Topps and Fanatics products this fall. That's my guess. But what we don't know is if we're going to see them with the official NFL team licenses. We may not. They may be the unlicensed products. Could we have a scenario, Teapot? You had suggested this yesterday, where maybe the following year, when all of this does get sorted out, those products have like a double rookie class run.
2012.
That's what happened in 2012 Prism basketball, right? There was all these licenses changing over between, Panini coming in and getting exclusives and everything. And so in 2011, there were very few releases of basketball cards. Only a few products came out. So in 2012, in a product like Prism, they doubled up the rookie class. They did the 2011 rookie class and the 2012 rookie class. Could we see that? What does this all mean?
My initial reaction to this was just, whoa. As we've seen things unfold and play out, it feels like we've seen really the art of war being executed by Ruben and his team. And I don't think Panini has the resources to withstand this type of strategy from them. He's clearly got connections that run very deep across the board. I find myself wondering, was the head of the NFLPA at that white party? You know, what's going on here? There's a lot of questions
Tinfoil
around
hats
this.
on.
Is there a photo of him and like Kim Kardashian there?
There might be. You
something
never
happening?
know.
Yeah.
And like Doug said, you know, it seems like if he doesn't get his way one way, he's going to find a way to do it another way. Yeah, I think we could have that scenario where if we don't get the products for this year, they'll definitely be inserting them. Topps is already doing retrofractors of, you know, players who are deceased or, you know, never
Roberto
played in this era.
Clemente's first Bowman is coming out this year.
Exactly. So I think they're going to capitalize on that for sure. They're going to have rookie cards. When? I don't know. What products? I don't know. Now, a big question is, are we going to see the same thing with basketball happening? We were teased earlier this year with, you're going to have Topps Chrome basketball later this year, or, you know, in 2023 or 2024. There's been some things in motion for a long time. I think that Panini may have made a big mistake filing a lawsuit, getting a countersuit, digging their heels in, and that all feels very kamikaze at this point. I would just love to see somehow, come on guys, can't we all just get along?
Yeah.
I get it. It's a business, but all's fair in love and war too. So
Hopefully it resolves peacefully. At this point, I don't think it's going to resolve peacefully.
Way past that point.
Yeah, I think we're way past that point. What a wild, what a wild situation. The one thing I will say for the hobby, for those of you worried out there, what's going to happen if there's not the normal football products this fall and everything like that? Don't forget, we went through a period back in 2020 during COVID where product releases were all totally delayed. There was no sports on TV. Everybody predicted the hobby was going to die, and it went the complete opposite direction. And maybe this causes more interest in prior year releases. We've already seen wax prices starting to rise with like 2020 football boxes. Maybe it causes more people to just go out and buy singles instead of chasing new releases this fall if those new releases aren't as good of a quality or as plentiful, which frankly is a good thing from an investment standpoint. Anyway, you guys should be chasing singles, not always chasing the new releases. If you want all of the latest details and all the legal ins and outs and everything going on, I just interviewed Darren Rovell on the Jeff Wilson Show. Go listen. It came out this morning. The Jeff Wilson Show is a separate YouTube channel and a podcast. Search for Jeff Wilson Show on YouTube or on a podcast platform. You're going to like that interview with Darren Rovell. I like the 1996 Bowman's Best Kobe Bryant card. That's a card I have in my personal collection. Beautiful card. And another copy of it is right now for sale on pristineauction.com in PSA 9 condition in their sports card auction ending here in just a few days. Doug, anything in this latest Pristine auction that caught your eye?
Yeah, talk about chasing singles instead of new releases. I'm going to go back a little ways to 93, but they've got a Michael Jordan Topps Finest refractor that I've got my eye on. I'll be going for that one.
Nice. How about you, Teapot?
Downtown, baby. 2020, Patrick Mahomes running it back for another Super Bowl this year. And it's got the great photo of him like this, Miami.
That was a really good card.
Great card.
I owned that card for a little while. I actually traded that card to the National, but owned that for a little while. That's a cool card. So all of those cards plus hundreds, thousands more are all available on pristineauction.com. And when you register at pristineauction.com, enter promo code SCI. When you register SCI, you're going to get $10 in free credit towards your first purchase. Go do that now. All right, next we got to talk about your Data Dive episode from this last week, Teapot. You kind of like try to pour some cold water on people who would be buying new rookie cards. You pointed out the fact that when Mac Jones cards first hit the market, how unbelievably high they were, and then they just fell and fell. And even a guy like Trevor Lawrence, when his cards first hit the market, the new releases that came out during Trevor Lawrence's rookie year, the first sales of those, the first raw sales and the first graded sales were astronomically high. His cards then cooled down significantly. Recently, they've actually picked back up quite a bit again, but they're still not quite back to what they were where those first couple sales occurred. So your point was you can sleep on the new guys a little bit.
Yep.
How does this translate to what everyone out there should be thinking about?
Putting aside the fact that there might not be any more football products coming out or not many more, normally I would say something like Score just came out. Don't jump in and start trying to buy the first PSA 10 Bryce Young or Stroud or whatever, whomever that comes out.
Now there is one exception though. What if that's
what I'm saying.
What if that's
only
one of the?
Who knows?
What if there's not many more Bryce Youngs coming?
Don't bank on that. Don't bank on that. Don't
know.
overpay. Just don't overpay.
Yeah.
Just don't do it. And for many reasons, those ones in particular are just going to lose value as more products typically release if they do. But even so, they always come out, they go down. I want to do a little overreacting to preseason. I always have a little fun with that every year because if there's any preseason that I think matters the least, it's the NFL. Those games, it's just like fluky. The guys seem like they have no chemistry. They're putting in random people at random times. And so some of these guys went in threw some interceptions, didn't really look like they knew what they were doing. It's a long season. They got to work it out. A lot of quarterbacks, especially, it takes them 6 games to a year or even more to even get us, hit their stride. So I just said pump the brakes, and it kind of remains to be seen what happens with these guys.
Yeah, okay. Well, Doug, I know you often ignore good advice and just jump in headfirst to things anyway. Yeah. So if you're going to just jump in headfirst to this year's rookie class of these quarterbacks, who are you jumping in on? Like, do you like any of these quarterbacks? I'm sure you like Will Levis, but besides for him.
Truth be told, I don't like Levis. I think
that's nice. I don't like Anthony Richardson, even though he's a Gator. Just simply in terms of pro prospects, you don't like Levis.
I'll
even
defend
though you're a Kentucky guy. That's funny.
I'll defend him. If you would have started this conversation by saying Levis sucks, then I would have went on this huge pro Levis rampage. But truthfully, no, I don't think much of him. He's probably 3rd string right now behind Malik Willis of all people in the Titans. So I hope the best for Will. I'm not super optimistic. Really, Bryce Young is the only guy, if we're talking about like these main rookies, that I have some amount of confidence in, but his team around his surrounding talent is just not there at all. So I don't expect that any of these guys are going to be remarkably good investments starting out. I think there's some that are actually going to be really bad. I think Anthony Richardson and Will Levis would be pretty bad ideas. But if you were to go with the, Stroud, or if you were to go with Young, I think eventually those could pan out as their teams improve, as they get some talent around them. But I think it's going to be ugly to start out with. Really, I think if you're looking for some type of sleeper outside of this main core group of known commodities at quarterback, it's probably going to take something like a Geno Smith, somebody who's thrown into that role unexpectedly due to injury or whatever may happen.
Brock Purdy last year.
Yeah, exactly. So,
no one was looking at Brock Purdy last year. 7th round draft pick, Mr. Irrelevant.
Yeah.
Could happen again this year, you're
saying. It could, yeah. Look at, maybe Sean Payton gets tired of Russell Wilson being terrible and Jarrett Stidham steps in and plays well for a little while. Or Tua gets injured, which is very possible, and that loaded offense has to be driven by whoever it is, Mike White or somebody. Mac Jones not really impressing people. Maybe Bailey Zappi comes in
Bailey Zappi
throws
time.
It around. Somebody like
Bailey
that.
Zappi time. Yeah. No, these are all good things. The year prior, the prior year's class, Teapot, you got Pickett, you got my boy Desmond Ridder, you got Sam Howell. Who do you like, Brock Purdy? Who do you like from that prior year's class?
If I had to pick any of those guys, I'd say Purdy because of the situation, but I'm just not high on any of those guys either.
It's bah humbug guy.
It's all 2020.
He's not high on anybody.
Bah
humbug over here, just doing all his videos. Don't buy any cards. Everything's going down. Bah humbug. Bah humbug.
Buy gold.
Some of these guys are gonna bust out this year for sure, and I look forward to seeing it. And hopefully there will be cards when they do bust out this season for us to all buy. All right, guys, we got some more great topics. We got to talk about Panini products that will stand the test of time. Are your kabooms still going to be worth something 5 or 10 years from now if Panini dies, which it's looking like they may? We're going to talk about that next, but first a quick break. Check out all of those amazing stand-up displays, card displays by going to standupdisplays.co and use promo code SCI for 10% off your order. All right, let's dive into this next topic with this talk of Panini going away. We know they're going away. Going away from football, they're going to go away from basketball. It's just a matter of time. But there's a lot of people that have invested heavily in Panini cards and certain inserts like the kabooms and the color blasts. And, I love the blank slate ones personally. Downtowns are super popular. And obviously you got serial numbered cards and, from Prism and National Treasures and Flawless that people have paid big money for. Does this stuff hold up? Or should people be worried that once it goes away, some of, collectors will start to lose interest in some of that, and a kaboom 5 or 10 years from now may not have the same value that it has today. Teapot, what are your thoughts?
I think there's 3 buckets of card prospects going into the future and playing it out. And it's not necessarily as much to do with the Panini era as I just think the general trend of things, but there is some dynamic to this, kind of not existing anymore. These cards that have been popular, I think will withstand the test of time, at least in some sense. I don't know that they will continue to rapidly appreciate. They may come down in value some, but of all the cards in the Panini era, I think the kabooms, the color blast, the blank slates, they have enough mystique baked in downtown that they'll hold value, for the long term. There's another bucket of cards where it's, certain players, specific iconic players, and I talk a lot about this on Data Dive. It's only a handful of players who will really command retainable value over time. It's going to be the best ones. It's going to be, Giannis, Steph, LeBron, certain players from this era. And then I think there may also be some specific kind of cult favorite type inserts that people aren't super aware of. But as time goes on, fewer and fewer of those cards are going to be available in the marketplace. There's things like that. If you go back to the 2000s now, I just bought a Brian Urlacher black Topps Heritage Chrome Refractor numbered to 52. And I paid up a little bit for it. I've wanted a really cool Urlacher card, even though he's a Bears. I liked the way he played. Those just never come up. I've never seen one come up for sale. And so that made me go, even though this is numbered to 52, I never see this card. I'm going to pay a little bit more money for it because I really want it. I think that's what's going to happen with a lot of these Panini cards. People will have them locked away and in boxes and things for a long time, and you'll see fewer and fewer of them. So people will fixate on which ones I don't know, but on specific inserts and parallels. And I think those ones could actually go up and have a higher value.
So Teapot says, hold on to your color blast, Doug. You agree?
I do, yeah. So I think all we really have to do in this situation is kind of look back to the last 20 years of Topps, when, from the 90s on, when they had football and basketball, and what's held up from that era. Flagship set stuff. So Topps Chrome, Topps has done well. I think you would see the same thing with Prism and probably Optic, just because of the rated rookie logo. I think those will probably be fine. And then outside of that, you're going to look at, like he said, the really significant inserts. And this would actually, we've had the conversation recently, will these big inserts hold up over time because they're just going to keep being printed, keep getting printed. But if they abruptly stop now, then I think that actually bakes in long-term value for those cards. So I think, all of the major inserts that we're talking about are going to be really coveted if they have to stop right now. And unfortunately, because of what's been going on, we might not see those anymore.
Yeah, no, actually, that's an excellent point. If you think back to the 90s and all the 90s inserts that people love today, the precious metal gems, the jambalayas, and all those 90s inserts, I know you don't love that one as much. Those are all coveted, today to a high degree. Yeah. Same thing could happen in the future. That's a good point, that if they have to stop printing them, then you only have a limited run of kabooms of any particular player that you want to collect. Speaking of that, one of our listeners suggested this next question in the YouTube comments after our last episode, or maybe in our Instagram comments. They wanted to know, all of these inserts, all these super short prints that we see in different products, why do they keep repeating the same 20 to 30 players? Is there a lack of imagination? Is there a lack of creativity? Is it good that you'd keep seeing the same guys over and over again on these highly sought after inserts? Or should the manufacturers actually get a little more creative and show a lot more variety in terms of who they feature on those super short prints? Doug, let's start with you on this one.
So I guess the question is, are they using the same crop of guys too frequently? I mean, yes, but what else are they going to do? You have to include the top rookies every year. You have to include the absolute superstars, the most collectible players, the most popular players. If you arbitrarily just say, okay, this year we're not putting Giannis and LeBron in the kabooms, there's going to be segments of people that are going to be completely upset by that. And people maybe that were are collecting a full set of Giannis kabooms year after year, like they skip a year. That continuity, breaking up that continuity, is just not good either. So I don't know what they're really supposed to do here in that situation. You kind of have to use some of the same groups of players every year. What we've seen more recently is they've been adding to that core group, been throwing in a lot of veterans and things of that nature. Really, that's probably just because they're increasing print runs across the board, so they need to add more cards to that checklist to allow them to print more. But yeah, what are you going to do? I mean, you have to put the best players in there.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with you. Do you agree?
No, I'll tell you exactly what you have to do.
Okay.
It's very simple. There's a few strategies. One that I've advocated for a long time is take a year off. There's enough really cool inserts. Do blank slate this year, do Aurora the next year, do blank slate the following year, do Aurora the next year. It keeps it fresh. It creates a unique chase that you don't get and actually adds demand. When you saturate the product with the same awesome inserts every year, it's like, oh great, we hit another one. Another thing that they need to do more to make the products look a little different. The one I will say it's okay with me is blank slate. They've done enough to alternate the look year over year, but if you go back to the 90s, they had flagship inserts year over year, Beam Team and other things like this. They always looked substantially different. They got, well, chuck my pen. They always got fresh with their designs. Now, the other thing, the NBA of all leagues is a superstar-driven league. There's 50 different players that you could put in this that people are going to want to chase, especially when you factor in rookies. You don't have to put every rookie into every insert set like they like to do. And I think you could rotate those year on and year off too if you don't want to do the inserts. So do LeBron in blank slate this year and do Steph in Aurora and then flip it the next year. There's so many different ways you can mix and match, especially in a superstar-driven league like the NBA.
I don't know, T-Pod. I can't agree with your take there because what I see when I look at all the sales data and market movers, it's very obvious that there's like the 20 or 30 players that everybody wants to buy. If you look at the sales numbers.
That's a big checklist.
If you look at the sales numbers of like the top 10 or top 15 players in football and how often they sell compared to everybody else, they just sell multiples and multiples and multiples more than everybody else. Everyone chases the biggest names. So I feel like you got to put them in the insert sets. I agree with Doug. You can't go without LeBron James in a Kaboom or something like that. He's got to be there, in my opinion. I do think that Panini's done a few things. Like there was a Ray Lewis downtown a year or two ago. There was a Randy Moss Kaboom.
That's the other note I had before I threw my pen.
There was a Dan Marino Kaboom.
Yeah.
You know, that was a pretty cool one.
They just made a Tim Duncan blank slate. They can
so they're doing a little bit of it. They're doing a little bit of it. I think it's enough.
Plenty of players.
I think it's good. I think it's fine. I think you're good for watching this show. Do two things for me real quick. Go check out the Jeff Wilson Show interview with Darren Rovell, and then go to standupdisplays.co. Use code SCI for 10% off these wonderful card stands. They got a huge selection on their site. We appreciate you. We'll see you soon with our next episode. Take care.